The idea... Now look, let's talk for just a moment about the idea of the medical system right now. I will agree with Tom, and I think everyone here will agree, we have major, major problems in our healthcare delivery and financing system. We do. But since when does more governmental involvement in anything lower the price of it? Look what has happened to medical care inflation since Medicare. Look what's happened to the cost of higher education since the government began paying more and more of it. The answer to most problems in the United States when it comes to affordability is allowing the market to do its work. And this brings us back to Jefferson. Pauline Maier, in her book about the Declaration, says that when Jefferson was originally using that term happiness, there was originally the idea that he would talk about every man is endowed by their Creator with life, liberty, and happiness. But why not say that? Because not everyone achieves happiness. You are allowed to pursue happiness. You are allowed to pursue wealth and to create wealth. And you do that best by respecting the rights of others to maintain their own property and the fruits of their own labor. Nothing could be more basic to the future of this republic.
All right. How about Michael Medved and Thom Hartmann?
You actually got an applaud from me. Are there going to be opportunities for
There's going to be a lot of back and forth. I get the first question to Thom Hartmann, then Dick will have a question for Michael Medved. I'd just like to throw open the healthcare debate. That was one of my, in fact, that's at the top of my list here. Dick had a two hours of his show last weekend was on single-payer healthcare and the virtues of it. Could you please talk about that and defend it? As Michael said, can we name anything the government does efficiently and well other than sending water to our houses? Could you get into single payer and tell us why you think government-run health care is good?
Sure. Well, first of all, the conservative argument that is put forward that somehow people have the right to starve if they don't work, it's a straw man. Of course, if somebody doesn't want to work and they don't get paid and they decide that they're just going to sit in the street and starve, God bless them. It's not, but see, on the other hand, I would say that probably indicates you've got somebody who's mentally ill, in which case maybe we have an obligation. Let's remember, since you're invoking the founders here, that the first veto of James Madison, of his administration, was to veto a piece of legislation that gave money to churches in Washington, D.C. to provide for the poor. The reason why Madison vetoed this was not because he had any objection to federal money being used for the poor, because it had been used for the poor literally since the first year of the Washington administration. His objection was that for the first time, Congress wanted to give the money to churches to give to the poor. And he said this would cause an entanglement of the churches with the secular state that is inappropriate, and he thus vetoed that legislation with a rather eloquent vetoing statement. So, number one, I'd say, this straw man of, right to starve, yeah, it's a great applause line, but come on. What insurance does, the whole point of, with healthcare, I don't think there's probably more than maybe a half a dozen people in this room, maybe not even that, who, if they were really struck with a multi-million-dollar illness, could cover it out of their personal checkbook. I certainly couldn't. I doubt most people could here. The whole point of insurance is to spread the risk as widely as possible, and to do so in as efficient as possible a fashion. United Healthcare, the second largest health insurance company in the world, or in the United States anyway, probably in the world, United Healthcare, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out on their front page year before last, paid their CEO, William McGuire, who the Wall Street Journal referred to as Dollar Bill McGuire. That was his name within the healthcare industry. This is one of the guys who helped Billy Towson get his job at $2 million a year as the head of pharma after he shepherded Medicaid Part D through, the Republican congressman, he was paid $1.78 billion. This from the health insurance company that routinely asks people, prove that you actually are sick. Oh, you have a pre-existing condition? No, I'm sorry, we're not going to pay your bill. The fact of the matter is that if our insurance is covered by a single payer, and that single payer happens to be us, and let me put a punctuation point on that, because in my world, as an American, the government is not a them. I was in the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union. I was in East Germany when it was East Germany. I lived in Germany right on the border. The government in those cases, I was in Uganda during the war against Idi Amin. I have been in hellish places. I was in Darfur in March. In those places, the government definitely is a them. Bashir, who was just indicted by the International Criminal Court, deserves to rot in hell and be dragged before the court first. But our government is a government of us, we the people, the first three words of the Constitution. So we have a choice. We have a very simple choice. The way that this is presented typically by conservatives is to say, do you really want the government telling you what doctor you can go to? Do you really want the government telling you what health care you can have? And of course not. None of us do. Here's the other half of the question, because it's not a yes or no question. It's, do you want the government telling you what doctor you can see and paying the doctor? Or do you want Bill McGuire, who skimmed $1.78 billion off the top, has a private jet with gold-plated bathtubs, washcloths, and a multi-million-dollar a month pension? Do you want him telling you? Because those are the two alternatives that we have in the United States, unless you happen to have $2 million in your checkbook. If I may just put one closing sentence on that. The whole point here is that a health insurance company, a for-profit health insurance company that has to take 10% off the top for dividends to its stockholders, has to pull $1.78 billion off the top to give Bill McGuire, that has to pay salespeople, that has to have promotional literature, that has to have the fancy headquarters. All of those expenses are being paid by us. If the guys in the green eye shades, like with Social Security, who have never failed to pay a check, are writing the checks, then the costs are actually lower. They're demonstrably lower. We've seen it all over the world.
Michael.
I don't know if everybody heard. Let me make sure I heard you correctly here at the end, Tom. You said that if the guys who are running the Social Security system ran this, then the costs would be lower?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what you said? The Social Security system is broke.
No,
it's
the Social Security
bankrupt.
system is just
It's
fine.
a
Thank you
disaster.
very much. The Social Security system is fine. Thank you very much, Michael.
Okay.
Please name one person who has not gotten a Social Security check.
Why is it that more Americans believe that there will be an alien invasion of the United States when Americans under the age of 25 than believe that they will actually be able to get Social Security benefits someday?
The reason why is very straightforward. Because there has been a relentless and steady drumbeat for the last 50 years or 60 years since the invention of Social Security by people who don't want Social Security because they think it's socialist to try to convince people it's no good. If you take off the cap so that Bill Gates is paying the same percentage of his income in Social Security taxes as you and I do, Michael, then this system will be solvent forever.
Okay. There is no
It's true.
There is no actuary in the United States who will tell you that that is true. And the reason, by the way, is because of the healthcare system in the United States increasing life expectancy. Social Security may have worked in 1935. It worked in 1935 because it guaranteed people retirement from age 65 to age 67 when most people died. That was the average life expectancy at that time. And it doesn't work anymore because the health care has improved. Let me go back to a couple of points that you made, Tom, and I want to do this very quickly because I want to give chance for people to ask and for us to approach other questions as well. You said that it was a straw man to suggest that people have a right to starve. Let me
No.
talk about a socialist paradise called Sweden, right? And I know you've been to Sweden. We've been to Sweden, right? In Sweden at the moment, one of the reasons that Sweden recently elected a right-center reformist government is because they found that with their welfare system, 20%, that's 20% of able-bodied adults did not work.